California is facing a deficit next year that's expected to be $18 billion.
California just plummeted to 48th place in America's tax competitiveness rankings, and 216,000 residents fled the state in just 12 months. The exodus isn't slowing down. In fact, it's accelerating, as state lawmakers scramble to address an $18 billion budget deficit projected for the coming fiscal year. A new billionaire tax proposal gathering signatures for the 2026 ballot has tech executives openly threatening to pack their bags and leave within days. This isn't just another political debate. California's cash reserves, once stacked at $22.8 billion, have plummeted below $11 billion. The state that boasts a $4.1 trillion economy, ranking as the world's fourth largest ahead of Japan and Germany, somehow cannot balance its books, and it gets worse. The top marginal income tax rate stands at 13.3%, but when you factor in the payroll tax cap removal that took effect in January 2024, high earners now face an effective state rate of 14.4%, the highest in the nation. That means for every $100,000 earned above the threshold, California takes $14,400 before federal taxes even touch your paycheck. The numbers tell a story of a system designed for revenue swings so extreme that long-term planning becomes impossible. Half of all personal income tax revenue flows from just the top 1% of earners, a group whose wealth rises and falls with Silicon Valley stock prices and Wall Street capital gains. When tech stocks soar, Sacramento's coffers overflow. When markets stumble, the state budget collapses overnight. According to the California Legislative Analyst's Office, this structural vulnerability will generate annual deficits ranging from $18 billion to $30 billion through at least 2029, even if the economy avoids recession. California drivers face another brutal reality at the pump. The state gas tax hit 70.9 cents per gallon in 2025, the highest in America. When you layer in environmental fees and compliance costs for California's unique fuel blend requirements, the total state levy can push past $1.01 per gallon before federal taxes kick in. For a typical household driving 2 vehicles, this translates to an extra $80 to $120 per month compared to neighboring states. It's a hidden tax that compounds every time you fill up, and it disproportionately hits working families who commute long distances because they can't afford housing near their jobs. But the tax burden extends far beyond gas tanks and paychecks. California imposes a base state sales tax of 7.2%, the highest minimum in the country. In Los Angeles County and several Bay Area cities, combined state and local sales taxes climb to 10.25% or higher. That's more than a dime on every dollar spent on clothing, electronics, furniture, and countless other goods. According to the Tax Foundation's 2025 State Tax Competitiveness Index, California ranks 48th overall, dragged down by the 47th ranking on individual income taxes and 49th on corporate taxes. Only New Jersey and New York fare worse in overall tax climate. The corporate tax environment tells an equally grim story. California's top corporate income tax rate sits at 8.84%, among the least competitive nationally. More damaging than the rate itself is a unique provision that sets California apart from every other state: the complete denial of net operating loss carry-forwards. This means companies cannot use past losses to offset future profits, a standard practice in 49 other states and federal tax code. For startups burning through capital to scale, or cyclical industries that experience boom-bust patterns, this rule makes California uniquely punishing. The Tax Foundation estimates this single provision cost California businesses billions in competitive disadvantage annually. Major corporations have voted with their feet. McKesson, a Fortune 10 healthcare giant with deep roots in San Francisco, announced its headquarters relocation to Irving, Texas in 2019, citing operating costs and tax climate. Oracle followed in 2019, shifting from Redwood City to Austin after decades in Silicon Valley. Hewlett-Packard Enterprise, tracing its lineage to the garage that birthed Silicon Valley itself, moved from San Jose to Spring, Texas that same year. Charles Schwab left San Francisco for Westlake, Texas in 2021. Tesla relocated from Palo Alto to Austin in 2021, followed by SpaceX shifting operations to Starbase, Texas. The departures didn't stop there. Chevron, headquartered in California for 145 years, announced in August 2024 it would relocate to Houston. According to a Public Policy Institute of California report, 789 corporate headquarters left California between 2011 and 2021, with the exodus accelerating sharply after 2017. In 2025 alone, several more announced exits. Haircare manufacturer John Paul Mitchell Systems to Wilmer, Texas, Realtor.com to Austin, and multiple Elon Musk-associated entities including X, formerly Twitter, and additional SpaceX facilities. Each departure erodes the tax base, eliminates high-paying jobs, and sends a signal to other businesses evaluating their location strategies. California's labor market reflects the strain. The unemployment rate stands at 5.6% as of September 2025, according to the Employment Development Department, compared to the national average of 4.3%. That's not just slightly higher, that's 30% worse than the rest of America. Job growth has stalled, with the state adding just 0.3% more jobs over the past year compared to 0.8% nationally. Even more troubling, California has shed 21,000 jobs since January 2025, despite optimistic economic forecasts. The California Economic Forecast projects unemployment could peak at 5.9% in early 2026 before averaging 5.5% through the year. The migration figures underscore the crisis. Between 2024 and 2025, approximately 216,000 more Californians moved out of state than people from other states moved in. This isn't a temporary blip. California has experienced negative domestic migration for over 2 decades, with families and professionals consistently choosing Texas, Florida, Arizona, Nevada, and Tennessee as destinations. According to U-Haul's 2025 migration report, the most popular destinations for California, exiters include Houston, Denver, and Las Vegas metropolitan areas. Each departure represents lost tax revenue, reduced consumer spending, and diminished economic dynamism. Housing affordability has become the impossible dream. The median price for a single-family home in California hit $905,680 in the second quarter of 2025, according to the California Association of Realtors. That's more than double the national average. Monthly payments on a typical California home now exceed $5,500, requiring an annual household income of at least $221,000 just to qualify under standard lending criteria. The Car Housing Affordability Index reveals that only 15% of California households can afford to purchase that median-priced home, down from 17% in the first quarter of 2025 and barely changed from 14% a year earlier. Since 2020, housing costs have more than doubled while wages have grown by only 25%, creating a widening gap that makes home ownership increasingly unattainable for middle-class families. The Legislative Analyst's Office notes in its third quarter 2025 California Housing Affordability Tracker that homes in California are about twice as expensive as the typical US home. For renters, the situation offers little relief. Median rent in California has increased 40% since 2000, while median renter household income has risen only 9%, adjusted for inflation, according to the California Affordable Housing Needs Report. Here's where the paradox becomes almost absurd. California's gross domestic product reached $4.1 trillion in 2025, officially surpassing Japan to become the world's 4th largest economy, according to the International Monetary Fund. If California were an independent nation, it would rank behind only the United States, China, and Germany. Per capita output reaches $102,662, near the top among all US states. Silicon Valley and the Bay Area continue to attract more venture capital investment than any other region in America. fueling innovation in artificial intelligence, biotechnology, clean energy, and countless other sectors. Despite this economic firepower, California swings from feast to famine with dizzying speed. In 2022, the state celebrated a record $97.5 billion budget surplus. By 2024, that had flipped to a $68 billion deficit problem, later revised to projections showing annual shortfalls through 2029. The 2025-26 fiscal year opened with an $18 billion budget hole, according to legislative analyst Gabriel Patek, who warned, "This represents not a one-time adjustment, but a structural crisis driven by revenue volatility and spending commitments that outpace sustainable growth. And now, the situation threatens to deteriorate further." A ballot initiative known as the 2026 Billionaire Tax Act, backed by the Service Employees International Union California, proposes a one-time 5% tax on individuals and trusts with net worth exceeding $1 billion. Proponents claim it would raise $100 billion to fund healthcare expansion. Tech executives have responded with threats to leave immediately. Palmer Luckey, co-founder of Oculus VR and defense tech startup Anduril, warned the tax would force founders to sell large pieces of their companies or face wage garnishment. Venture capitalist Vinod Khosla and entrepreneur Gary Tan have echoed similar concerns. Celebrity attorney Alex Spiro, representing multiple billionaire clients, sent a letter to Governor Gavin Newsom warning that his clients would relocate before the tax takes effect if the measure passes. The exodus threat is real. Texas offers zero personal income tax and a franchise tax of just 0.75% on business revenue. Florida levies zero personal income tax and a 5.5% corporate income tax. Nevada has neither personal income tax nor corporate income tax. All three states allow businesses to carry forward net operating losses, providing crucial flexibility California denies. Housing affordability in these competing states amplifies the appeal. The median home price in Texas and Florida sits below $450,000, less than half of California's median. Affordability rates in these states exceed 50%, compared to California's 15%. For high earners contemplating the billionaire tax or simply tired of 14.4% effective income tax rates, the math becomes straightforward. A $10 million annual income taxed at California's top rate costs $1.44 million in state taxes alone. In Texas or Florida, that same income triggers zero state income tax, a savings of $1.44 million every single year. California lawmakers face choices that grow more constrained by the day. Raising taxes further risks accelerating the exodus of high earners who already generate half the state's income tax revenue. Cutting spending means slashing programs that millions of Californians depend on, from Medi-Cal to education to infrastructure maintenance. Borrowing more adds to debt service costs that already consume billions annually. The Legislative Analyst's Office project deficits will persist regardless of which path policymakers choose, unless fundamental reforms address the revenue volatility and spending trajectory. So here's what we know. California ranks 48th in tax competitiveness, imposes the nation's highest income tax rate at 14.4% for top earners, and charges 70.9 cents per gallon in gas taxes. The state has lost 789 corporate headquarters since 2011, with accelerating exits in 2025, including Chevron, SpaceX facilities, and others. Unemployment stands at 5.6%, 30% higher than the national rate, while 216,000 residents left for other states in the past year. Only 15% of households can afford a median-priced home of $900,000 or $680, more than double the national average. Despite commanding a $4.1 trillion economy, the world's fourth largest, California faces structural budget deficits of $18 billion to $30 billion annually through 2029. The proposed 2026 billionaire tax threatens to trigger an immediate exodus of the very tech founders and executives who fuel the state's innovation economy. Meanwhile, Texas, Florida, and Nevada offer zero income taxes, lower housing costs, and more favourable business climates, making the decision to leave increasingly rational for those who can afford to move.